What is up, everyone? Welcome to Making the Grade, our weekly look at the Arizona Cardinals PFF grades. And we actually have a win under our belts. So these are always a lot more fun looking at the grades on wins than losses. So this is going to be a lot more exciting night for us, I think, or certainly better mood for all of us. We saw some nice things, some things we were hoping to see. So we'll get into all that. Overall, though, this was, a game against a team that, is the Pittsburgh Steelers are a well-coached team. If you're familiar with, the track record, under their coach, they have Mike Tomlin. They have not had a losing season, even with their quarterback situation this year, which isn't great, right? He finds a way to win, right? So, now their team, they're not an elite team, I think, in terms of talent. They're a well-coached team that plays probably a little better than what they have on the roster, especially when you look at the quarterback situation. But getting a win, right, was huge, and certainly some nice things. So we're going to do what we do, which is look at the PFF grades, talk about what those data are showing us in terms of trends, players to watch, things we're seeing. But before we get into the grades, let's say hey to some of the folks that are in the chat. We got Calvin, the OG, the first super chat that I ever had, a longtime channel member. Really appreciate you, Calvin. Everyone gets an A+, including Mother Nature, right? The weather, all kidding aside, it was inspiring to see how our team played. Props to our coaching staff. Yeah, there were some really nice things to go there. There were some areas where, you like to see a few things cleaned up, but overall it was a solid game. We got Class Nasty. What's up, Professor? Appreciate you hanging out with us tonight again. We have Franklin Carlson. Do you think we're going to get Marvin Harrison Jr.? On Twitter today, there's been kind of I would say, a vigorous discussion about that. I think there's a good chance. I think he is arguably the best non-quarterback in this draft, arguably the best player in the draft. Obviously quarterbacks tend to get kind of inflated in terms of moved up the board. If we end up pick number 3, which is kind of what it's looking like right now, we'll see how it ends, and quarterbacks go 1 and 2. That seems like it could be the pick. I got into, kind of a little bit of discussion with folks that I don't think that's the only viable option. I actually posted a mock draft. I did one on PFF today, and it wasn't Marvin Harrison Jr. I traded back and got Newton, the defensive interior lineman. I think there's a lot of directions they could go. It really depends. What does Monty, how does he want to approach this? What's his take? How does he want to build the roster? And also, where do we end up? If Cardinals end up at 3rd overall, quarterbacks go 1 and 2, then that seems like the most likely scenario. But it wouldn't shock me if Monty traded back. Some people wouldn't like that, but we'll see, right? Brandon Bropes, thanks for being here. Big negative grade to Mother Nature for all that rain she brought, right? Yeah, no doubt. And we have Grandizer doing what Grandizer does best, which is holding down the chat, supporting content creators. Thank you for all you do, posting all the reminders and things. You are a great service to content creators across this space. So thank you, Grandizer. We got Alexis. Hi, what's up? Hey, how are we feeling today, Cards fans? I think we're feeling, pretty good. Saw some, some progress, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. We've got Mizaki Felix. Thanks for being here. I think trading back is by far the best option. I mean, I'm a fan of trading back and building a deep roster across the board. And you need some elite players, but sometimes you can find those guys later than you think. And maybe you take a shot with someone, in the first round, but there's analytics that have talked about that the best value you get in terms of production and everything is kind of in 2nd round picks in terms of, I think it was, I'm trying to remember what data they used. It might've been wins above replacement. I don't remember. I don't remember what it was. So I'm probably using the wrong stat, but there was an article published 3 or 4 years ago that looked at kind of the value, that you get in terms of for player production versus, kind of what the draft pick is worth and everything. And 2nd round picks are kind of that sweet spot, believe it or not. So anyway, not saying don't want to ever take 1st round picks, but I just think, I think people get too enamored with those early 1st round picks, and you can find some game changers there, no doubt, but you can also find them in the middle of the 1st round and later in the 1st round. And if you build a really deep roster across the board by getting extra draft capital that's also a really good way to build things. So there's a lot of ways you can go, but I do like trading back. That I do have kind of I lean towards that in general as a philosophy. But there's a lot of. Here's one thing I know though: the Cardinals have a lot of draft capital, and Monty, with what we've seen from this draft class, has certainly shown an ability to do a good job. So I'm pretty excited about that. What we're going to get with him. Loto and Cabone, thanks for being here. What's good, fam? Thanks for hanging out with us. We've got Franklin Carlson. What about Brock Bowser? The tight end from Georgia. That'd be nice. Obviously we're going to talk about Trey McBride, who has just really, really done a nice job, and just really developed into the player we all hoped he would be. You look at Monty Austinfort, comes from New England, and they built a lot of rosters with, two tight ends, and really strong two tight end sets. So, I could see that, though. I wonder if they'd be more likely to go with someone who's going to go a little bit later, maybe someone on day 2. But sure, maybe. I think that'd be pretty exciting to see what they did with that, right? All right, so let's go ahead and get into the PFF grades, right? And let's talk about what we saw from the Cardinals. Starting on the offensive side, right? First thing you see, Kyler Murray graded well, right? In fact, had the highest overall offensive grade of anyone on the Cardinals, right? And so this is nice, right? And we'll normally I start with the offensive line, but let's go ahead and start there. His running grade was decent, 66.7, but the passing grade, 77.4. That was a nice thing to see. I watched the game, paid close attention to what he was doing. There were some throws that were off. There were some points, he was taking a lot of sacks, but I also think he was trying to play within the offense. It seemed like instead of being so quick to hit the ejector seat button and kind of, exit the pocket, he was trying to stay in the pocket, and that resulted in taking some sacks. And, it was a more efficient game, but it wasn't a big numbers game, right? He had less than 200 yards, passing, so it wasn't a huge production game, but it was more efficient. There were some throws that were a little off here or there that, they stalled out a little bit, but it seemed like he was trying to play within the offense and not trying to play hero ball. And they put up enough points, 24 points. Obviously, you can win with that if your defense, can be more consistent, which they were this game. So, it was nice to see him playing within that offense. In terms, I didn't count the number of snaps under center. It seemed like they were mixing those throughout the game a little bit more. I think there was a couple of weeks back where it was like all in the first drive and then hardly any later. It seemed like the under center snaps were a little more mixed out, kind of peppered throughout the game. But, overall, though, it was nice to see. And, if we look at Kyler Murray's grades, right, this season, this is his best passing game by far, right? 77.4. He's had some nice running games, but his passing grade, his first game back, 60, 62 through 5, 57, and now 77.4. So, he's acclimating to the offense. He's recovering from an injury. He's getting used to playing a different style where he's not playing hero ball so much. And, I think this was a nice step forward. We want to see more of that happen. And against a good defense, right? Let's remember, they got some nice players on this defense, TJ Watt, right? Keanu Benton. So that's, that certainly is nice to see. But let's go ahead and get to the offensive line. So we're going to, what I always do, sort of my pass rushing or pass blocking snaps, kind of brings the offensive lineman up to the top. And overall, I think this was one of the better games the offensive line had. It certainly in terms of the grading. Paris Johnson Jr. was okay. 63.6. It's not a great grade, but it's okay. Better run blocking than pass blocking. Yelda Froholt, though, had this was, I'm pretty certain, his best game of the season. Certainly pass blocking, 83.5. Let's take a look at what he's done this year. Grade of 74.7 was, yes, definitely his best game. It was also his best pass blocking game, and tied for his best run blocking game with the game against Dallas. So we saw a nice game from Yelda Froholt as well. Tristan Cullen played most of the snaps at left guard. He was okay. This has been a trouble spot, right, for the Cardinals left guard. Haven't had great production. Carter O'Donnell played some in 6 snaps, was not good. But, Tristan Cullen's been probably the best grading left guard, so I think we've been wondering why they haven't been starting him, throughout the season. No one has been great there, but if you look at his games, limited snaps, he's had a couple decent games, so I think that's, okay, better than what we were getting earlier in the season. DJ Humphries continues to struggle. Not a great game for him. Will Hernandez, though, had an outstanding game, 75.1, 87.7 pass blocking. I don't know if that's his best game of the year, but it's up there. Let's see if it is. No, 75.9. First game against Washington was his best game. This is his second best game. But, overall, though, I think we got pretty good play on the offensive line, certainly better than, what we've been seeing throughout the year. No one was, no one was in the red, right? Carter O'Donnell was a little low, but on 6 snaps, right? So offensive line, not too bad. Then let's look at the tight ends, right? That's usually where we go next. Trey McBride, 77.2, 89.9 passing. His run blocking, brought it down. Wasn't great, but in terms of the run blocking, but the pass catching was outstanding, 89.9. He had that, we all know he had a great game, led the team in receiving yards. And then there was that one great catch where he went up for it, right? The one off just with his fingertips. And when I saw that play, the thing that came to mind was that was the kind of catch that Zach Ertz kept missing when he was with us, healthy earlier this season. When he came back, it felt like there were 3 or 4 of those catches where he went up for a catch and just couldn't make it, right? And that happens as you get older, and McBride, we just saw him make one of those catches that Ertz wasn't able to make for us earlier in the season. So love what we're seeing from McBride here. Overall, we look at his grades. He's the 7th graded tight end in the NFL right now, 77.2 here. He's had just really great year, couple down games, but most players are going to have a few of those. Grading at 79.3. Just love to see that from him. Jeff Swaim, had a decent game, okay, 57.7, nothing special. Pass blocking was better than run blocking, limited snaps. Elijah Higgins had a nice little game. He had a couple, I think he had one really nice catch and run that I saw and graded reasonably well. So, he's been up and down. He's was a 7th round pick, 6th round pick from the Dolphins. He's a rookie, converted, I believe, from wide receiver to tight end. And, he's been up and down, but a guy that might be a nice depth piece moving forward. So, but obviously we love what we're seeing with Trey McBride. I mean, there can't be enough superlatives about what he is becoming for them. Chris Young, thanks for hanging out with us. Appreciate that. You jumping in here. I didn't get to watch the game. There was increased plays under center versus shotgun. I didn't count them. It felt like they were mixed in there a little bit more. But yeah. And then does Froholt have experience at guard or just center? I know he's played center for us, but is there a possibility of signing him over to left guard, or we find a good starting center in the draft? He has played some guard. Let me bring up his snaps. Let's see. We'd have to blocking. All right, so let's see. Season grades, we'll go over here. Position count. See, he's played center, mostly center, right? But he played some right guard last year and in 2020 and a little bit of left guard. So he has played some of both, right? He is a nice guy to have on your roster. Even if they find someone who's going to be a starting center ahead of him, he's a guy who can fill in and play guard or center. So, yeah, I think – We'll see what happens. I suspect if they draft a center, they might still start Froholt for a little while to get them up to speed, but we'll see, right? CB, McBride is killing it. Check, 100%. Thanks for being here with us tonight. So, yeah, okay, so we looked at the tight ends. They're doing, we saw, again, McBride's doing awesome things. Decent play from the other 2 tight ends. I still think, when we get into mock draft season, I still think I'm going to be looking at them drafting a tight end on day 2 or 3 to kind of, they're going to want to use a lot of 2 tight end sets. So I'd like to see them maybe develop someone with McBride. So I'll probably be drafting drafting tight end a lot on my mock drafts later. All right, looking then at receiver, Rondale Moore didn't have a great game, though. There was that one, there was that one throw in the end zone. Kyler threw a nice ball and he just couldn't pull it in. That would have been a nice touch about it. Rondale Moore's grades have not been great this year. Using him a lot as a gadget player. There was an interesting stat though, and someone in the Discord looked this up because we were having a conversation about this. And I apologize if I don't remember who it was, but if you're in the chat, maybe mention something that was you. But someone, we're talking about how they're using him as a gadget player, and he's rarely targeted as the first option. And someone looked this up, and there's a stat that they shared in the Discord about how I think he was one of the highest rates of his targets being when he's targeted, he's not the first or second option. Like he's a check. Basically, they're doing a lot of check downs and gadget plays with him. So I wonder how much of the low production grades have to do with how they're using him. But, we obviously it's disappointed. I believe in the talent, but it just, they're not using him a whole lot. Andre Bocelli, they got 30 snaps, a lot of snaps for him. Didn't do much there. Dortch had an okay grade, had a really nice catch on the sideline. Right. Oh, Brandon Brobst. Yeah. Okay. That was you. Great stat you pulled there. If you want to explain it maybe a little better than I did in the chat, let me know. But that to me, that was really kind of interesting and kind of really confirms kind of some of the things I've suspected. Right. If I had to choose between Moore and Dortch, who are you keeping? Man, this is tough because if they would actually use Moore differently, I like his skill set, but Dortch just is a guy who produces, right? Dortch just gets open, he makes things happen. So based on the field, I mean, Rondale Moore is faster, he's shiftier, he can do some things if you use him right, but they just haven't. So I don't. And we've seen him make some nice plays, in the past, but I don't know what isn't working. I feel like it's how they're using him, but Dortch deserves to be on the field more. He produces. He would be I think I really like him as a starting slot receiver. If they would use him more. So his grade was okay. Had one really nice catch. Dan Chesina, I'm probably not pronouncing that right. Only had one snap, so nothing really to speak of there. Hollywood Brown graded very poorly, and he's not, it was a really bad game. I think he had one target but no catches, right? So disappointing what we saw at Hollywood Brown this game. Not seeing much out of him. We would have thought there'd be the connection with him and Kyler Murray. We'd be seeing more of him, but I like Hollywood Brown. He's got some crazy elite speed, and you need a guy with that kind of speed to take the top off the defense. Even, and I think he can be that. He might be kind of expensive, so I don't know. I mean, I'd like to see them have him as part of what they're going to build, but I don't know. I'm starting to shift to wonder if they're going to bring him back. We'll see. I know they have some conversations, but we haven't seen much with him. So yeah. Okay. So Brandon's saying Rondale's number one wide receiver in the league in rate of targets where he wasn't the first or second read on the play. Right. So that's, again, it tells me they're really using him as a gadget and check down player. So you wonder how much is that impacting his grade, right? Where he's just not getting as many looks where he's kind of really where it's designed to get it to him. So yeah, I don't know. Mazaki Felix, I don't think we should keep Rondale Moore. He's been disappointing over his Cardinal career. I mean, yeah, it's there's just so much potential, but it just hasn't been consistent, right? Chris Young, for me, Dortch just always comes up with plays every time he gets a snap. That one catch where he goes up, gets it, and lands on his back just in bounds is a perfect example. Yeah, love what we see from him for sure. CB, when does Michael Wilson return from injury? Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure. He's missed a couple games, but the fact that they haven't put him on injured reserve tells me that he's going to be back. I would lead me to believe he's going to be back soon. Because if they thought he was going to be out more than 4 games, and you'd think they'd put him on the IR so they could clear the roster spot, get someone on. So I think probably I would suspect next game or two, based on the fact that he's not on the injured reserve. So we'll see though, right? Keith Davis, thanks for being here. Sorry to be late. Let's go, Joe. Appreciate you and all your support. Appreciate you hanging out with us. Brandon saying, hopefully we see a fully healthy Hollywood after the bye to get the best evaluation of that connection. I agree. Want to see him healthy. Want to see him part of this offense. Gustavo Mota, thank you for being here. Wish we'd use more, right? He has the most potential receivers. The guy is shifty and fast. And he's low center of gravity. He's hard to tackle. Like, and he's go back and look at some of his highlights, like what he can do as a receiver, like Rondale Moore, what he can do. I don't know if there's anyone else on the roster as a receiver that can do what he can do, but they're not harnessing it. And so, if it's not happening in games, then it doesn't do us much good, right? Chris Young, Marvin Harrison Jr., Wilson, combo Moore, Dortch as a slot guy next year and let Hollywood walk. You get no complaints from me with this scenario. Maybe, yeah. I mean, if you're doing that, Rondale Moore has to become your deep shot guy. Like, you need to have someone who will run those go routes and make the safeties, kind of keep them honest. You need some, like, and here's the thing people don't understand. Like, sometimes a player who a guy with deep speed who hits, on the outside, who hits those go routes and goes deep, might not even get targeted all that much, but still impacts the game because he's taking the top off the defense. Safeties are having to kind of follow him, and it opens up the middle of the field for guys like McBride. So, like, you can have a player like that who impacts the game just by being fast and being a guy that the defense has to account for, and they can't compress the field as much, even if they're not getting a ton of targets. Heck, even if they're not great at catching it, the defense isn't going to just let them run free, right? Like, Ted Ginn Jr. made a career as a return man and a guy who could go deep, right? Even though he had the drops, right? He wasn't a great receiver in terms of catching the ball, but you run him on the outside on a go route, and the cornerbacks aren't going to let him go free. Like, you can't not cover him. So yeah, and so that's so you need that guy. Does it have to be Hollywood Brown? No, it could be Rondale Moore. He's got the speed. They could draft a guy somewhere. So, you could draft a guy who's fast but you need that guy. And that's one of the reasons I've still been in on the potential of keeping Hollywood Brown, is to have, because he is legit fast. Like, he's one of those rare fast guys, in terms of receiver. And, so he can do that. And, Keith's saying for Hollywood to stay, he would have to agree to wide receiver money, in my opinion. Yeah. And wide receiver 2 money. And yeah. And it'll be interesting to see, what the numbers look like when he gets a contract, whether it be with the Cardinals or somewhere else. So anyway, that's my case for Hollywood Brown. Now, maybe you find someone else to do that, to fill that role, but you need to have someone who has that speed if you want to really open up things for the guys underneath. All right. So receivers, had a couple nice catches. Dortch had a nice catch, but Trey McBride was really the story catching the ball. Right. So, didn't get a lot out of the receivers, a few nice catches here and there, but it was Trey McBride and James Conner, really. Speaking of James Conner, halfbacks, James Conner, his run grade was 74.1, which was solid. And that, to me, that checks out about right. He had some really nice runs, but he also, it was a little uneven. There were a couple, times he got bottled up a little bit. Some of that was on the offensive line. Some of it maybe was him, but he also has some runs where he made something out of nothing, which is what he does. So, I think that 74.1 running grade and 70.5 overall grades checks out about right. Michael Carter had one really nice run where he broke a tackle and a couple other nice plays. He graded at 66.7. So nice to see him, on the field, right? DeMarcado only had 2 snaps and he got hit pretty hard on that one. So, but overall, it was a solid, this game really felt like, I know some people have talked about, this felt like kind of the recipe for the Cardinals right now, right? Running the ball effectively, getting over 100 yards, running, James Conner doing what he does, and, an efficient offense, Trey McBride doing what he does and putting up enough points, but kind of, trying to protect the ball. They did a couple fumbles that they were able to hold on to, but, they didn't turn over the ball, really run heavy and some efficient passing. And that's kind of what we saw there. Right. So yeah, Trey McBride was the real story in offense, plus that, and Kyler Murray having an efficient game, right? And the offensive line was decent, receivers so, running was solid, right? Let's get a few more comments and we'll go to the defensive side. Danny Correa, thanks for being here. Happy to see Kyler Murray play like the Kyler of old. I just hope this win doesn't take us out of a chance to take Harrison Jr., right? August KK, all about his price tag, like between him and Higgins. If they both command the same price, I think I'd rather Higgins. in terms of receiver. Yeah, depends. I mean, are you talking about who are you talking about with Higgins? Let me know who you're. I mean, August. They're like we need a speedster, right? So, not sure who you're talking about there, but Chris Young, the McBride catch over top of Fitzpatrick was amazing. My favorite play of the game after the Patrick Peterson stiff arm into oblivion. Yeah, that was nice, right? Let's see. What is Connor's cap charge next year? That's a good question. Let's look that up. Let's look at James Conner contract. All right, let's take a look and let's see what they're saying here. All right, so next year, his cap hit for next year is $8.49 million. It looks like. So, yep, $8.449 million. So $8.5 million, right there. You know, and the dead cap versus the, you know, I mean, it's a year that you could release him, but I don't think they're going to, right? And they have a lot of cap room, so I think they're going to keep him around, right? McBride has been the bright spot this season for sure. Oh, T. Higgins, maybe, yeah. I don't know if he's got that kind of speed or not. Admittedly, I don't know. I'd have to take a look at his combine stuff, but yeah. So yeah, here's the thing. I think if you're not going to pay Hollywood Brown, I think you're going to go draft someone. If you're paying someone, you're better off to pay someone who's in your building. And this is kind of I'm just not a believer in spending big money on high price free agents. Get value free agents to fill holes and add depth. But if you're going to pay a big contract, pay someone who's been in your building, is my opinion. Or if not, drafts the replacement. That's a whole other conversation. Chris Young saying, I'm so torn about that Bears game. It would be super painful to lose them, but losing would help draft stock, right? Yeah, that's the rub there, right? All right, so let's switch over to the defense side of things and look at the defensive grades. Now, let's go ahead and sort this by positions. Actually, maybe let's do the pass rush snaps. That gets us the defensive front first. Okay. Dante Stills had not a great game. He had that, he jumped on that one fumble. That was the fumble recovery. That was nice, right? But overall, he didn't grade particularly well. He's had a little bit of a down stretch here lately. Like if you look at it, he started out slow, then has come on, but the last two games, this is better than last game against, LA. But, it's been a little bit rough last couple games. His 59.4 is overall grade. Would like to see him get back on the right track there, but still, like what they're getting out of the 6th round pick, no doubt. Jonathan Ledbetter didn't grade particularly well. He's been, he hasn't been great. He's a guy who probably wouldn't be starting on most teams. And, he's had an all right game there. Not so, he hasn't been particularly good. Gardeck didn't have his best game. Kevin Strong had a solid game. He's played nice for them. Free agent that they picked up, veteran, former undrafted free agent. He's had some nice games. It's been up and down, but he's had some solid games. He's grading a little bit slow here on the internet today. But overall, some games in the 60s and 70s. He's overall been a solid player for them as a guy they picked up. BJ Ojulari, nice grade there for him. He's certainly been a guy who's kind of looked better of late. Since he's getting some consistent snaps, right? So love what we're seeing there. Roy Lopez continues to be a solid nose tackle for them. This is a guy I hope they keep around. He's graded in the 60s a lot this year, and for a guy that they just kind of picked up, off the street, or I think off waivers, it's been nice. Cameron Thomas continues to struggle. Not feeling great about, what we're seeing from him. We've talked about that before. Zaven Collins, had a decent game. This is a very Zaven Collins kind of a game, grading in the 60s-ish. Pass rush grade was a little bit low. He's up and down there. We've talked about that before, right? Converting to edge. Phil Hoskins, guy who they elevated from the practice squad. Nothing special there in terms of his grades. Dimakaji didn't have a particularly great game, right? So on the defensive front, then Jesse Luketa on 3 snaps, right? Very limited snaps, graded well. But when you look at the defense of the edge rushers and defensive line, a couple guys played okay. They didn't really get at the quarterback particularly well. There were a few nice plays, but not really. I don't think they had any sacks, or there were some forced fumbles, but it was okay. I think the fact that they only gave up 10 points. I mean, the defense made some plays when they needed to, but it also looked like Pittsburgh was struggling offensively. I mean, there were points where it just looked like we couldn't stop Pittsburgh running the ball. So that's, certainly, it was the looking at the game, watching the game flow, it didn't feel like the defense played as well as the score suggests, if that makes sense. But defensive front had a couple guys, some guys that did okay, right? Let's look at, and there's a comment here. Papo's grade confuses me. His overall grade is quite a bit higher than all the subcategory grades. It doesn't really make sense to me. Yeah, they have sort of an algorithm, or not an algorithm, a formula for these things that have to do with grading certain things, and that does seem odd to me, and I'm not sure why that is. So to be honest, I don't know. I think each position has its own formula, and that's not a publicly known thing, and I don't know exactly what the formulas are. But like for example, cornerbacks, the coverage grade is going to weigh more heavily, right? So I think my best attempt to explain it, and this is probably not going to be particularly well done as an explanation, is that for a linebacker on limited snaps for middle linebackers, they want good tackling grade and good coverage grade. So I guess that those grades are particularly, that coverage grade might bump that up, but it seems weird to me too. So I don't know. But here's what is interesting to me about Papo. And I tweeted this out. He had 6 snaps, right? But if you look at, and I know this is truncated, you can't see it, but these are the pass rush snaps and the run defense steps. So this is like the way and this is something I do know from what I did with PFF a few years back, is when they grade a player, they assign on a particular snap, when the play on a particular play, on this play, was he playing the run? Was he out in coverage, or was he rushing the passer? Right. They kind of assign what role was he taking on that play. Right. And if you look at like your middle linebackers, you see a lot more run. These are the 29 for Josh Woods, 29 run defense, 28 in pass coverage, and only 3 pass rushing, right? So, well, for Papo, 5 of his snaps were pass rushing. Okay. Out of the 6 snaps, 5 were pass rushing. And, one of the things I looking at a little bit more deeply, when you look at that, of those, you look at those 6 snaps he had, 3 of them were aligned at the defensive line, which includes edge. So he was probably lined up as an edge rusher on 3 plays. And the other 3 were in the box. So that can be a linebacker or a strong safety, like within a certain depth, right in the middle. So they were split between defense, like lining him up on the edge and lining him up in the box. But 5 of those snaps were pass rushing. So what that showed me is this game, they used him blitzing and as kind of as a pass rush specialist, blitzing basically, right? He still is kind of viewed as a middle linebacker. He was drafted as the guy who had great athleticism, but limited instincts, so to speak, in terms of as linebacker-y kind of things. So that's interesting. His athleticism though, and his speed is really great for the position. So it was interesting to me that they use him sort of as to at least this game blitzing, right? So yeah. Aaron Van Buren, thanks for being here, my buddy. AVB, beating the Steelers in the game. I'm okay with winning. First time beating them since 2007 when Steve Breston had a punt return touchdown to win it. Now here's an algorithm, right? I appreciate you, Aaron. I hope you were doing good, my friend. Keith Davis saying Steelers have the 3rd lowest scoring offense in the NFL, and they lost their starters in the second quarter. Bad weather makes passing harder. So this was a good situation, Cards to win. Yeah. I mean, it lined up for them to have a good chance to win, right? So that Papo grade was interesting. I mean, that's something to watch. What are they going to do with him? He's only played, defensive snaps in 2 games this year. And that pattern of being used as a pass rush specialist is not what was going on the game before that. He only had one pass rush snap and two in coverage and one. So that was, so it's not like that's something they've done, both games he's seen action in. So it will be interesting to see if they continue with something like that with him. All right. So then also let's get to by position. So middle linebacker, Chris Barnes, not a great game, in run defense. He really struggled and, they were running the ball well. Right. And, he hasn't, let's see, it's a little slow loading up. He hasn't been consistent, but his grades have been, he had a nice stretch there. So that was pretty consistent, I guess. So this looks like it's just more of a down game for him. He's graded at 75.0. So, more of a down game for him than I guess how he's played all year. Josh Woods didn't have a great game. I think he struggled early and then of late had a little bit of a stretch there. He was okay, but his grades 36.1, not great. So, the Cardinals are going to need to, hopefully, obviously Kaiser White coming back healthy at some point will help. Maybe, next year. I'd like to see them get a linebacker somewhere in the middle rounds, though, someone who can be a starter for them down the road, right? So yeah, then let's look at cornerbacks, right? Garrett Williams continues to be solid, right? Grade 66.1. His grade for the season is right around 70. Let's see. Yeah. We see he had his first game back was a little bit low, but overall he's, and he had the Cleveland game was a little bit low, but he's been good overall, 70.2. He has been really a nice player, since he's come back from injury, right? Love seeing that. We also see Keitrell Clark had an okay game, 64.2, 64 in coverage for a rookie 6th round pick, right? Who's being forced back into starting role. He's been a little up or down, but this was a decent game for him. Last game was a solid game for him. So, like seeing him back in the lineup, I'm a fan, so hopefully we'll continue to see this. And obviously with that comes at the expense of Marco Wilson, who was started up until last week. They took him out of the lineup and he hasn't seen the field, and Marco struggled. And, we've talked about this, but really what it looks like to me, what I see is they gave Marco Wilson an extended audition to show if he could play in their defense and be the guy they want him to be. And he didn't do it. And now they're moving on and getting Keitrell Clark back in there and giving some other guys some looks, right? Heck, they even started like Devad Wilson, a practice squad guy over Marco Wilson, right? He played 61 snaps. This is a undrafted free agent, right? Out of University of Central Florida, right? He was undrafted free agent. This is his second game, better than his previous game, but they're starting him over playing him over Marco Wilson, which tells you they're done with the Marco Wilson experiment is what I'm seeing, which is disappointing because Marco Wilson had, the physical traits, and last season he kind of came on second half of the season, was grading really well, and just has not worked, has not played well this year. So it really looks like, Marco Wilson, it'll be interesting to see if he's back next year. He's still on his rookie deal. I could see them keeping him through his rookie deal as a depth guy who has some experience starting, but I feel like Marco Wilson's days as a starter with the Arizona Cardinals are done. And I think we're going to see Garrett Williams as being a starter, whether they keep him in slot, which they have been doing, or they move him outside, which I'd like to see. But he's going to be a starting player, slot cornerback's a starting position in the NFL. Garrett Williams is going to be the guy. We'll see if if Keitrell Clark retains the starting position, but they're going to be addressing cornerback in the draft and maybe free agency this year. So, but love what we're seeing from Garrett Williams, like what we're seeing from Keitrell Clark. When we look at safeties, Jalen Thompson is Jalen Thompson. We know who he is. He's a solid player. Budda Baker, star, right? Good games from both of them overall. In terms of other safeties, Shesheri, I never say his name right, had his customary one snap, right? He gets 1 or 2 snaps a game. And so that's kind of what we saw there. So, overall on defense, the grades, there were a couple, again, Papo was on so few snaps. It's, that's the high grade was on a small sample size, but, we saw a couple nice plays, a couple guys with some nice games. The defense, I'm not trying to be down on them. I think the defense didn't play as well as the score suggests, because I think Pittsburgh really wasn't offensively working very well aside from the running game. But still, they gave up only 10 points, so that certainly was nice. Real quick, let's look at the Pittsburgh grades. We saw on offense, Nate Herbig, the right guard, had a really nice game, 91.8. They had some nice grades from their offensive linemen, which, checks out with the fact that that our pass rushers didn't really get much in the way of sacks. Freiermuth, love Pat Freiermuth. He had a nice game. Pickens had a nice game, right? Mason Cole, we all know him, right? Darnell Washington. So had some nice games there. Connor Hayward, not great. Pretty bad down the bottom. Kenny Pickett, that's an important story. Quarterback didn't play well. Mitch Trubisky was okay, right? So anyway, the offensive that's kind of what we saw there. On defense, Keanu Benton, nose tackle for them, had a nice game. Marcus Golden on limited snaps. We love Marcus Golden. He had a decent game. They had a couple other guys that had good games, but overall, their defense didn't play particularly well either, right? So it was a tough game for Pittsburgh, right? So yeah, for Pittsburgh fans, they had a really rough game, right? Aaron Van Buren, did I hear that right? No more Marco. That's what I think, right? That's the best news we've gotten this season outside of Murray returning and beating the Steelers, right? Yeah, for sure, right? Let's real quick look at the overall. I like to look here at the overall kind of how everyone's grading on the season of the starters. We've got Baker and Thompson. We know, who they are, grading in the 70s there. Barnes and Woods, Barnes grading well, Woods not so much. Zaven Collins, haven't get a nice grade there. Demikaji, his grade 66.5 is nice, but it's padded a little bit by his better play earlier in the season, right? Now Wilson, they've got Marco Wilson still listed here because he's got the most snaps, I think, at cornerback, but he's not starting anymore, right? Ledbetter, Strong still, okay in the middle. Then when you go to the nickel, they throw some other players in there, right? We see Garrett Williams there, Gardeck, Ojulari, right? On offensive line, they've got Tristan Colon in there. Hernandez, overall good. Everyone else is kind of meh in terms of their season grades, right? Hollywood Brown season grades okay. Dortch, we got him listed there. McBride, right? We see him there, 7th graded tight end. James Conner, the 5th graded halfback. He's having a great year. Love what we've seen from him. Murray, again, coming back. I think this is going to continue to go up. Rondale Moore's grade is low. When we go to the 12 personnel with the 2 tight ends, we see Swaim in there. So that's what we're looking at for the overall grades. So yeah, again, it was a nice win. Real quick, want to say to Josh, thanks for being here, Josh Butts. On behalf of Bengals fans, thank you for avenging us, Josh. Nice. Yeah. Yep. Josh is a Bengals fan. His buddy Chris is a Steelers fan. So a little divisional rivalry thing. Glad to do it. So yeah, I think, the stories here are Trey McBride obviously continues to show he is the guy. Love Trey McBride as a big part of this future. Kyler Murray seemed to take a step forward in terms of acclimating to this offense, seemed to be playing within the offense. It wasn't a big numbers game for him, but it was efficient. And I think that's what we're going to kind of see for the season. I don't think we're going to see a lot of those, backyard hero ball games from him, at least not this year. I think the mission this year, from what I'm seeing, is get Kyler Murray acclimated to playing within this particular type of offense, and then next year try to kind of maybe go full bore with it and open up the playbook a little bit more with the runs next year. But right now, just get him comfortable in it and try to, kind of figure out what their identity is, which seems to be a little bit more of a run game heavy efficient offense and trying to get the defense playing better. So again, it was a nice game. Some nice things to see there. It's always a better mood when you come away with a win. So we'll see what's going. We'll see where things go from here. Moving forward. There's only so many games left. The season's kind of getting ready to wind down, and let's see. I think we have the bye week this week, so there won't be we're not going to have a live stream next week for the Making the Grade since it's the bye week. But seeing some progress. So thanks everyone for being here. Thanks for hanging out with us. Cuss Nasty. Peace out. Appreciate you. I'm going to throw up the channel member shout outs and then we'll get out of here. And we'll see you all in a couple of weeks. Enjoy the bye. And yeah, we'll see you all later. Peace.